Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, did you say me already? I was waiting for the thing where you say
Sorry,
me.
yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Let's give it up again for Andrew Bujalski.
I'm not lying. I wasn't trying to be a diva, I'm sorry.
So, this is obviously a very specific location to set a film. I'm kind of curious if you guys will talk a little bit about this world, sort of how you got introduced to it, sort of the things that you experienced, getting ready for this film, and the sort of the people that you met, the environment that you saw, and how that made its way into a script.
Shayna, had you ever hung out in any of these places before this? Or?
I went to a Hooters once with a friend in New York. There's like one in Long Island. So coming to Texas, being from New York, and going straight into this kind of environment, it was so different for me. But it was so interesting once you peel back that layer and you realize, like, these people are just, I have so many friends like them. They just don't work in this particular style restaurant, but so many other people work in the service industry.
Yeah, and I'm from Massachusetts, where we don't have quite so many of these places, but I've lived in Texas for a while, and there are probably a half dozen of them in, within 10 miles of my house. So I think I had wandered into one maybe a decade or so ago, and I don't know what I was expecting, but something about it stuck with me. It was kind of stranger than I had imagined.
In what way?
Well, I feel like I certainly feel like they're uniquely American. I can't imagine any other culture in history that would produce the demand for this kind of place, because there's that little kernel of raunchiness, but it's wrapped in so much other stuff. So much of it's about comfort and normalcy and trying to make people feel like they belong and they're okay. And it's a peculiar combination of elements, to simultaneously like kind of titillate someone, but mostly mute that and put it under a lot of, I think, acceptance. I mean, I think that's the main thing they're selling, which to me is very different than a strip club, which is more about selling the idea that you are, like, when you are transgressing when you go into a strip club, you're a cool guy, and you're not a cool guy when you go in there. You're just like your family, and you bring grandma and you bring the kids. I couldn't get that out of my head. It was odd enough that I kept coming back to, I wonder if there's a story I can do here.
Well, when you have some place that sort of evokes a story that you want to tell, how do you actually then translate that? Where did it start? Do you first sort of try and work on the shell of what a story could be in this place, or do you find a character first and how that person might operate within it?
Yeah, it's hard to reconstruct. I mean, I think it's kind of everything at once. You just throw ideas at the wall until something feels like the right thing. But certainly a big part of this for me was that that general manager character, Lisa, was my way in, because she was kind of an outsider. I knew I would go to these places. I could go there and do research, but I'm not the target market, and nor am I. I've never worked at one, so like I couldn't do the insider's perspective, but I could have this character who kind of comes from outside and learns to love it in her own way.
I love how Macy and Danielle are completely opposite in their sort of approach to their job. At least in terms of like what's the right word? They clearly have different attitudes towards it, and they complement each other so well. So talk about having these two supporting characters that are, really on a very wide divide in terms of whether or not they like their jobs.
This is long? Oh. I thought that question was for Andrew.
Oh, it's
for
no, go for it.
But I see it. Danielle is a realist, and Macy is, she's just so optimistic about everything, and you need that kind of relationship, especially, you just need that counter emotion. I'm just so serious sometimes at work, even though I get a little in the mix and into some foolery, but she just always brightened up the day, even on set, and I feel like that's just natural. Like, I have all my friends that is not like me, they're all opposite from me, and that's how you learn from people.
I mean, I personally choose to view this world through Danielle's eyes, you know,
Sure.
more so than through Macy's.
Sure.
So, I mean, tell us a little bit about that sort of, those different points of view and what you wanted to bring across with the people that actually have to work in this environment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously this is a very particular, specific work environment, but in some sense, I think what I liked about these, you know, playing these two characters off each other is that I think they're both very good at their job, but for one of them, it's because it's, you know, it's for Macy, I think it's a kind of a natural environment for her. You know, for her, it's like, well, why would I work anywhere else? You know, that world makes a fair amount of sense to her. And Danielle is, of course, you know, much more the kind of I can turn it on and turn it off. I'll do it and I'll do it well, but it's a job. And you see that in any line of work. You know, certainly in filmmaking, I feel like I know directors who of both kind of temperaments, and so yeah, that was I was interested in like what it takes to be good at that job too, and certainly that was something I kind of felt like I was observing when I would go into these places and have lunch. You know, there were some folks there. Some of the servers felt very natural, and others felt like you could feel more of the performance, even if it was a really good performance.
When you're writing a story like this that's inspired by something, you know, like a location or a business, is the sort of the confines of a one day story, is that something that helps in terms of finding the plot and how it could unfold, or what led you to use that structure?
I think I don't know. I mean, I knew I needed to kind of pile on Lisa. You know, I knew I needed to make her miserable, and that seemed like a convenient way to do it, just to put everything at once. I had a lot of story ideas, and at one point I'd been developing this as a TV pitch, and I ultimately, you know, in retrospect, I'm grateful that didn't pan out, because I never quite knew what the story was when I couldn't end it. But when I came back to it as a feature idea, and I thought I can take all this stuff and all these things I'm thinking about and compact it, then I knew, then it was very clear, you know, where I had to go and beginning, middle, end. And it was great to have that, and I think it allowed me to make a deeper and in some ways a darker story than I probably could have, and extending it forever.
Well, when you were casting, in particular, Regina, Haley, and you know, basically all of the people that work there, what kind of qualities were you looking for? How did you come across? First of all, how did you come across Shayna, and how did you find? I mean, really, it's a fantastic cast. Each one unique.
Yeah, we just got really lucky. You know, casting is always throwing yourself open to the heavens and saying, "Please send me angels." And in the case of Shayna, you know, you kind of get these when you make a movie like this where there's some money around and you want to, you know, have some kind of name cast in there. There's this kind of unromantic part of that process where you just get lists and the agency send you, you know, here's all the people we have, and that's fine. But I feel like I always have to do my due diligence and just think, let's just think for a minute of who's not on this list. Is there anybody they're not going to throw at us who could be interesting? So in the case of Shayna, it was, you know, maybe this is also unromantic, but it was Google. You know, because I feel like I've had a lot of good luck with musicians. I always like musicians as actors, so I was just kind of Googling around, like, who's out there, who are the young music acts who I'm an old man, I don't know. But I saw some of her stuff, and you know, I really liked her music and her presence in her videos, but also Shayna has delivered lectures on nutrition at Columbia and Yale, and I just saw those videos, and I'm like, this woman is really interesting. So it was a total shot in the dark. I talked to my producers, and we got word out to your reps, and we said, would Shayna be interested in acting? And she was. And yeah, and here we are today.
Yes, I would always ask Andrew just on set, like, how did you find me? He said, the internet. It really was. Shout out to the internet.
But you were so, I mean, you know, for somebody who had never acted in a movie before, you came so prepared and so good. I mean, I know, you remember your first shot. There was like...
Oh yeah, the first day.
First day,
I was like...
But we did your first take, and it was great, you know, and it, like it wasn't... There was
that made that put pressure on every other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, the first day is good, huh? What am I going to do the second, third?
Let's talk a little bit about the technique between the two of you guys, because you know, if you're new to acting and you're directing someone who's new to acting, what's particularly useful for an actor and for a director to have to sort of get the performance that the first on the first film? I mean, it's daunting, like you just said.
I feel like Andrew just made us all feel comfortable. So that helped, like scenes with Regina and I, with Haley and I. It just led for a just relaxing environment. For me personally, I just looked at it like I'm performing something that I didn't write myself, which I've never done before. I'm like, all right, this is a performance. Just remembers Andrew's words. But of course, connect with Danielle, and that was so fun to me to step outside of JP and what I do and what I think, and to tap into this other character that I also relate to too, because I'm a super duper realist and I'm super outspoken, just like Danielle, and I do often get the job done even though I'm like, ugh, but I get it done.
And Andrew, do you have any advice when you cast someone who doesn't have an acting background, ways in which you can work with them to bring out the best qualities that you saw in them when you cast them?
Well, it does all come down to, like, if you have the right person in the room, whether it's their first movie or whether it's Regina Hall, who's done 10 million movies, you know, that most of the job right there is, like, if you've got the right person for the role, you don't have to do that much. You check in with them, but I never felt like I had to tell Shayna who this character was, because she got it, and ditto for all the cast. We just had a great cast who was really really willing to take ownership of those characters. So for me, non-professional actors. The first 4 movies I did were primarily with non-professional actors with little or no experience. So that's in some ways that's an easier language for me to speak than someone who's coming in with a whole lot of craft. That's less intuitive to me. I'd rather just kind of talk about it on the bare bones. And what I really love about working with non-professionals, if you're very professional.
Right,
Sorry. Shayna's highly professional. But what I like working about people with fewer credits is that you kind of know, there's not like, for better and worse, there's not a 20 years worth bag of tricks. Like anything that person's going to do, hopefully, is going to start from honesty, and not that you won't get that from experience. Actually, I mean, Regina was so strong in this, and it's not like I was having to kind of push her away from a lot of bullshit because she knew the character. But
well, it does beg the question, though. Actually, now that you say it, working with professional actors after having all this experience with people performing for the first time on a movie, and they do come from a certain discipline and different styles of acting. Are there things, not just with this film, but also with Results, where you're working with people who have had decades of experience? Well, what are the things you have to do?
No, and that's, you hit on something that I meant to say a minute ago too. Is that it's also, no matter, what I just said implied that there was a big divide between professional, non-professional experience, but the truth is, like, everybody's different. So, Regina versus Guy Pearce on the last movie, it's all, everybody has very different methods and philosophies and things they're comfortable with and things they're not. And that's true for non-professionals too. Shayna, who had tons of performing experience, just not acting in a movie. But there were things that she knew intuitively that are very different than somebody else I put in computer chess or whatever. So every single person is different, and I feel like most of the job is just kind of learning to communicate, get a sense of where people are coming from, and then figure out just how you can best help them. But they're still doing most of the work.
Well, I really also love Regina's performance in this film, especially for her ability to sort of convey simultaneously that she's just barely keeping it together, but she's so good. I mean, she's such a good person that it's going to be okay. You know, like making other people feel like it's going to be okay. And I'm curious to know how much the actors may have surprised you in the ways in which they owned their characters, or things that might have come out of the casting process that made you think again about how they're written in the script. Are there times, because you have the flexibility as a writer-director to change things based on who you're writing for?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that a specific example will leap to mind, but I think everything you're describing is kind of what this whole process is about. And every time even you cast someone, you know, when you say, okay, we discovered Shayna and she's going to be amazing, it's very exciting. So then I always just go back, as soon as I cast anyone, I go back and I read the thing again and try to imagine, just hear their voice, and that helps me to build it. And then when we're on set, I think there's always room for playing with things, and certainly I try to be open to ideas.
You did. You were. You let me say. You let me change like one word.
No. Yeah, I know. You said this, and we did the Q&A in New York, and you said that, and I felt bad. I was like, hey,
no, that was a good thing. No, it was a good.
I should have let you change all the words.
No.
Yeah. And
what was the word?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was something so Brooklyn. I was just like, I have to say it this way, please. Added ma. When I came back with the speakers, I like add a little ma in for the New York flavor.
But I think you brought more to it than you know. That's what I think. Anyway. Yeah, I think that, but it is tough on this movie because one thing there was in some ways less room to play than I was used to, because there's so much choreography in this movie. There's so much, there are very few, even what I would consider like a traditional scene, where to me a scene is like you get a few people in a room and there's something they're doing or something they're discussing, and and this kind of pieces and components to it that you can play with. And this movie had a lot more of just like, she's going across the room, someone stops her, tells her this, then another person comes from this direction. It was a lot of like having to really hit marks and get the timing right, just because that's the way the script was built, and Lisa's constantly under fire from all sides. So in some ways it left less room for playing than I like. But it's still the job for all of us to try to stay alive and open to it, whatever it is. It's not going to work unless everybody in there feels like they have some ownership of the character and something to contribute.
Were there significant changes to the story from when you first wrote it to the script that you actually filmed?
Well, I think a lot changed from the years earlier when it had been a TV pitch. But as far as in this form, in movie form, it went through drafts like any script does, but nothing enormous.
Was there any particular hard day on set for this?
All the night stuff was brutal, yeah.
Oh my God.
All the night stuff was brutal.
Mm-hmm.
What particularly about it?
Everything.
Yeah.
Simply because it was shot at night.
What's it?
Long, just so long.
And it was like these, it's talk about choreography. That stuff, there's tons of choreography in there. And it was also just it's also the scene where the girls are most vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
And so, it was kind of like, I remember thinking at the end, it was like, I feel like I just, played, 4 quarters of NBA basketball and played in a chess tournament and had a 5-hour-long argument with my wife. It was like draining on every level, I had nothing left after that. But we survived it, sort of.
All right, let's open it up and see what questions we have from that here.
Yeah. I love this, man. I'm wondering if you did any kind of like anything with your cast before you started shooting to kind of build rapport?
The barbecue.
Yeah, we had people for barbecue, and then we had you guys were. I tried to get people down as early as I could, and so I think Haley, Lou, and Dylan were the first to arrive, and then I can't remember if you were next to Regina, but I tried to get, and it wasn't not a lot, but any time I had with them, and we had a fun, just kind of improv session, just you and Haley, Lou, and Regina just hanging out in the alley and kind of kicking some stuff around.
Yeah, we just had so many little moments that we were just able to just either go through lines together on a chill vibe, not when we're like right on set, or just like hang out and do stuff. And I think that helped. And like amongst us girls, so much girl talk, boy talk, astrology talk, so much stupid little silly things we did in between that I feel like just kept that sisterhood alive.
Yes.
Hi, I have a question for Shayna. So this was your first time acting, and I'm wondering if you ever thought that was something you wanted to do, and also do you think that you can do?
Oh, absolutely. I am definitely going to continue acting. I'm in this new HBO show as well called Random Acts of Flyness. You have to look out for me on that. But with this, I've always wanted to act for maybe about 2 years. I said it out loud amongst my friends. I didn't even put it on the internet. But somehow Andrew still heard it and found me. And before that, I do a little bit of acting in my music videos, and I realized, I'm like, I think I can do this. But even with music, it's never been anything I planned to do. Like, I went to FIT for merchandising management. I was just like, fashion, yes, everything. But I've always knew I was an artist. I just didn't know how to express it or which ways I'd be best at expressing and sharing my gifts. So now I'm seeing, okay, music, acting. And, yeah, I think it's just about learning myself. I just continue to take these opportunities and see if I could, do good at them.
Yes. Given how sort of frantic the rest of the film is in terms of the pacing, just how quickly events bounce off of each other, how did you decide on and handle the final scene, the pacing of the final scene, and how laid back it is in comparison, how it's the actors is just all interacting in such a lived-in sort of way?
Yeah, that was the last thing we shot, and that was different. I mean, it's, what I was saying before about there are not a lot of real scenes in the movie. That's a real scene, and that we did have more room to play. I mean, we were on a roof, which made it not entirely unstressful, but there was that room to really kind of spread out, and we had a fair amount of coverage, and there was I think you guys got to play with the rhythms of the scene. I mean, you're doing there's a thing you do in movies, like you kind of have, I don't know, 6 or 7 page scene, whatever it is, and really just lay into it over and over again. And hopefully, even though you're on a roof and it's windy and it's kind of scary, it's still there's that room to dig in a little bit. Did that feel different to you than?
No, I felt like we had a lot of that day was just so, because it was the last day, and it's just the vibe was just like, yeah, like we got through this. Let's get through this one and try this and try that, and it was like a very airy day. I know we were on the roof and everything, but it was like just airy vibes. Just.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun movie. Did you shoot that on the 610 loop?
On the what? On the
610 loop out there?
Yeah. Well, you're asking about a road, right?
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Location there.
Yeah. No, that's we shot in Austin. That's kind of where. What is it? 183 meets 935. Yeah. It's a big mega church. It was funny because we had a lot of, that was the hardest location to find, and it was the last thing we shot, but we didn't have that location until just a few days earlier. Yeah. It turns out a lot of people are not thrilled to let a film crew go stand on their roof by the edge. But the mega church had faith.
They had faith.
And they were up there.
Thank you.
It was like a 20, 21 day shoot. Yeah.
So did they go work at Man Cave?
What do you think? I mean, philosophically, I say that's up to you. You decide. But do you have an opinion?
I think that Lisa needs to start her own.
Yes.
Her own restaurant.
Her own restaurant.
Interesting.
Yep.
Since we're at a film school, I really feel like this is a good opportunity to kind of hear about a little bit about your career, Andrew, like as a trajectory, because a lot of people here have great characters in them and great stories they want to tell, and we're now in an era where people can, through various means, get things made without going through the industry, and your films have obviously led up to a point now where you're working with, very recognizable actors, and you're getting lists from agencies and things like that, but it didn't start out that way. And I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit about the things about your career that most helped you get to where you are now.
Oh, I don't know. Stubbornness is the main thing. I was a movie crazy kid. It was kind of all I ever really wanted to do. And if I could think of something more sensible to do, I might go do it at this point. But I always loved movies, and I'm still excited about them. So I studied as an undergrad. Actually, it's possible that the last time I took a summer class at USC in 1995. Which might be the last time I was on this campus. But and after that, I knew I wanted to make something, but I didn't really know what that meant. Because where I went for undergrad, it was, I think, very unlike USC. It was not really a particularly industry-minded place. So I came out of there not particularly employable, and I didn't know anything about how the industry worked. But I did kind of know the rudiments of guerrilla filmmaking. It's like this is how the camera works, and you record sound this way, and I cut on a steam back, and so I wrote a few things until I finally had something that I thought was kind of worth trying to do, and then just pulled together very minimum, classic kind of student filmmaking, basically just guerrilla student filmmaking with a crew of 4 or 5 people. We went out and did my first feature, which we shot in 2001, and I didn't know how I would get anybody to see it. I mean, I remember finishing that movie and that great kind of thrill of like, wow, I made a movie, but then also holding a 16mm print in my hands and going, oh shit, now what? Like, how am I going to get anyone to watch the movie? And kind of gradually, that movie had a very slow build lifespan, where it was about 3 years from us finishing it to it kind of attracting fans and supporters, and then in 2005 it had a official theatrical release. And then I just kind of kept tinkering and trudging along. It's sort of hard to reconstruct from here.
Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I am curious about the sort of almost this sort of parallel industry that sort of developed in those years, where you started to see a lot of filmmakers, say Joe Swanberg, and a lot of actors pop up in each other's work and really support each other. And I'm curious if that comes out of a particular environment, or if it was really sort of finding each other's work as you were doing it. Like, did you come out of a program together, or did you guys find each other through the work?
Yeah, through the work. None of that grouping of folks who kind of got lumped together were all, in some ways, in certain ways, like-minded. But we saw each other's films and met at these film festivals, and that we were also young enough that it was like very exciting to go to you're inviting me to a film festival, like I'll be there start to finish. Whose couch can I sleep on? You don't have a couch, I'll sleep on your floor. And so there was some years of that, and getting to know some of those folks, and there was no reason for us not to support each other. And I like that when people ask me about, and I noticed that you've been very good, and you didn't say the word mumblecore. But when people ask me about that, that's whatever that word means or didn't mean or meant. to the extent that I associate it with, a group of creative people being supportive of each other, I'm thrilled with that. I'm proud to be associated with that for sure.
And then your move to Austin, of course, that has its own film culture. How did that change the way in which you did things? Was there a certain amount of adjustment, or was it just business as usual with your next project?
I guess business as usual, but that's a very unusual business.
Yeah.
Austin is a super supportive filmmaking community, and that is great. Not that other places I've been weren't, and not that LA isn't in some ways, but in LA, first there is the big industry, and it's not necessarily the most indie-friendly town, but also people are busy here. Like everybody's hustling here, and everybody's got 10 things they're working on. And in Austin, there is that sense, which might go away as the town grows, but there's still that sense that people are going to come out of the woodwork to help you. People are going to drop everything to come help you with your movie, and that's a great thing to plug into.
Anyone else?
Yes. I wanted to say that I appreciated the way that the film dealt with the sort of racial and gender politics in the service industry, without the characters necessarily falling into caricatures. And I was just wondering, what you were thinking about with that, especially in a sort of a overly sexualized kind of personality.
Yeah, this stuff is it's all so tricky, and it's also complicated. It's all part of everyone's lives, one way or another. So I knew I didn't want to make I don't want to make a statement movie, because I don't know how to do that, and I don't think I'll be that good at it. I just wanted to kind of take the characters at their own, where they were, meet those people where they were, and try to get it. Try to be as respectful of those characters and their situations as I could. That might be as good as I can do on that. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you did do a good job making it. You did. Even as I, went through with all the lines, all the things Danielle experienced too, I often thought is this am I being honest? Is this really do I really feel this way? All these different thoughts, but I'm yeah, you actually were respectful to a lot of different people without probably even knowing it. But the characters that you chose, the cast that you chose, we were able to just deliver it in that authentic way.
That's a nice, at least for me to sit down and write. That's part of why I'm a filmmaker, and part of why I'm not a novelist or something else. Is I take the thing as far as I know how to as a writer, but then you're going to go get flesh and blood people and people who are going to bring life and spirits and something way deeper and more exciting to this than I can do with pencil and paper. So, I tried to be as open as I could too, in terms of I want, or I hope that people will feel like they can check me and call me on bullshit. If something doesn't ring true in the script, I at least try to convey to actors, please tell me if this is bullshit, and we'll try to find something that does feel true.
So you're opening this Friday. Mm-hmm. Do you know where in Los Angeles?
Newark.
At the Newark. Oh, great. Are you simultaneously premiering on demand?
I think it's one of those things where it's a few days later, but yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully you guys will steer some people to the Newark, because obviously, as we all know, films are always better when you share them with friends. So, congratulations. Thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you all so much.